had a lot of responsibility
Yes.
taking a person with disability into the mountains.
It's the same. It's the same as if I'm going to take a novice, non-disabled person into the outdoors.
So you're really a woman of substance who really advocates inclusion and people with disability.
It's just that our passion has converted into a purpose. That was the starting point of being an advocate for inclusion of persons with disability in the outdoors. Where we were 10 of us, 10 non-disabled and 3 blind. And we got one blind gentleman from Israel.
Hi, I'm Shalini Khanna, Head Outreach and Communication at Chakra Dialogues Foundation, a Section 8 not-for-profit organization which is focusing on nation building and strengthening India's comprehensive national power. We believe in inviting achievers and change makers to our organization, and today we have a personality for whose introduction I have to read out from a piece of paper. She's a woman of intellect, grit, and heart, a Chevening scholar, a TEDx speaker, an award-winning journalist, an author, a mountaineer, and many more. She's also an entrepreneur where she has founded an organization called Bohemian Adventures. And what is interesting about her is that she's a mountaineer who doesn't believe in personal glory. She's given it up for championing the rights of people with disabilities, and she has taken expeditions to various summits like the Everest Base Camp and Mount Kilimanjaro with people which were blind or which had other disabilities. We are going to talk about it from the person here, Miss Anusha Subramaniam. I would like you to tell us about your journey from being a journalist. You were there for many years, right? And from there coming towards mountaineering, how did that switch happen?
Thank you so much for inviting me to Chakra Dialogues, and it's a great honor to be talking to you. Well, the transition from journalism to mountaineering was a very seamless transition, I must say, because even while I was a full-time journalist, I continued to do my climbing and I continued doing high altitude treks. The turning point actually came when in 2012 when I got when my application for Chevening scholarship got approved and I got selected. I went for 3 months to London to study South Asian journalism program under the scholarship. It was also during that same time, I also won an award for journalism. It was the Reading National Excellence Award for journalism for a story that I had broken in Business Today on how environmental clearances are given out. It was an investigative piece on how there is they flaunt rules, environmental rules, to give out clearances for projects. So I'd investigated that, and that was the story that won me the first award. But when I came back after my Chevening scholarship, there was a slight shift in my perspective, how I was viewing my profession as a journalist. I wanted to do something more substantive. I just didn't want to keep writing stories or doing cover stories. But when you go abroad, however little time you spend, I took my scholarship very seriously. And I came back with a perspective of wanting to do something in the social space. Discover new people, write about social entrepreneurship. I like to experiment and explore. And so I've been a versatile journalist as well. I've tried my hand at various kinds of stories. I've covered page 3 to business of fashion, to business of media and advertising. So
in all this journalism and advertising, where did the seeds of mountaineering come about?
So while I was doing all of this as a mainstream journalist, I was also trekking. So every year, when we used to get our annual leave as a journalist, we could take like 15 days or 20 days leave.
So you were trekking.
I
at
would
that
go
time.
high altitude trekking.
Nice.
I would say this is my opportunity, and you know, trekking, what trekking does is that no phones, you're with the nature, you're in the outdoors, and you're away from all the chaos, because as a journalist you're constantly talking to people, you're constantly, you know,
Your mind
interacting.
is totally at work.
Yeah, it's always at work. If I have to get up in the morning and be unhappy about going to work, I said, this is the time. You need to call it off. I didn't have another job. I didn't think what I'm going to do next. Nothing was planned. All I knew was, ye nahi karna abhi. I don't want to continue this journalism. I didn't think of any other journalism or anything. And I said, I can only get clarity if I do something. The next day after I quit, I took my cycle, packed a small backpack where I put one pair of clothes, carried my helmet, had my cycle, Hydra pack, and I just went on a solo trip to Goa.
To Goa.
Yeah,
On a
my
cycle?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just took off. I told my mom I'll come back in a week's
With
time.
one set of clothes.
That's how we in the outdoors.
And how many days did it take you to reach?
So in 5 days, I think I was in Goa. I mean, I just chose my route. I hadn't planned कि Goa ही जाना है. My plan was I just need to take off. जितना दूर जा सकती हूँ, I will go. All I had planned for myself was every day I will cycle about 75, 80, maximum 100, depending on what time I start. So if I started very early in the morning, if I had a early night sleep and I've relaxed in the morning, if I start early, my cutoff time at any place to stop cycling was 5 in the evening, before it's dark.
That is rather adventurous, and probably I think that is why your company is called Bohemian Adventures.
Yes.
Because I can see that you're very fond of adventures, and you're pretty bohemian yourself with the number of tattoos that I'm seeing over here.
Thank you.
I would like to know where, now you're at a beach, you're talking of Goa. So where did the mountaineering come in? And also one thing I know for a fact that you're a chronic asthmatic yourself.
Yes.
So that would have been a challenge in your mountaineering journey. And also, was it one of the reasons why you thought that people who have disabilities should also be getting an opportunity to be doing what they really want, or go to these base camps and summits and all that? So is there any relationship?
Yeah, definitely. And so, to be very honest, I am a water sign. I've done so much of adventure activities, and I feel ashamed sometimes to say that I don't know swimming. And I'm very scared of water. After that trip in Uttarakhand, that cycling trip, I came back with a clarity. Okay, I want to continue writing. But how do I seamlessly integrate my writing with the outdoor work? Was something that I was not getting a clear indication. Then 2013 disaster happened. I was no job. I was just still freelance writing.
Talking about the Uttarakhand
Yes,
floods.
2013 floods.
I believe you really helped with that. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I didn't have a job. I was freelance writing. I got a lot of writing assignments. I knew that I had to be practical about earning a living every month to pay my bills. So in 2013, when the Uttarakhand floods happened, there was a call. So I've done my mountaineering course from NIM Uttarakhand, Uttarkashi. And Uttarkashi was one of the districts which saw human loss as well, along with, houses having washed away. And there was a call to do rescue and relief operations. And I landed from Bombay, not knowing what am I going to do. My current business partner, who was my course mate at NIM, mountaineering course, she was going on an expedition. They had finished. They kind of got saved from the disaster. They were back in town. I landed, and then we said we are coming here to help. We are ready to do any work. बोझ उठा के लोगों के घर जाके उनको relief material देना है, we will do it because we are trained as mountaineers to climb mountains, and we are even trained to take a heavy bag. So no plan, nothing, landed there, knew that you will be useful, just that we need work to help people. And then I was told that Bachandri ma'am is there and she's here to do relief work. So then got introduced to her. She called us. She said, why are you here? What is so fascination, to come into this disaster zone, and what do you want to do? So we said, we'd like to help. You give us any work, we'll do. And for about 20 days, we worked with her, learnt a lot about relief operations, how do you set up camp and all of that. Helped a lot of people with relief, at least about 1,500 to 2,000 families we must have helped. Many places with Bachandri ma'am, we trekked up where people couldn't come down. We actually trekked up and went to their village and gave them. This was also the time that after we finished our course, we tried getting jobs with adventure sport companies. But we were not getting jobs as guides. And there are very few women guides now.
I believe you're also training women of Uttarakhand to become guides for.
Yeah. So we sponsored a few girls to the course, and then we give them internship with Bohemian Adventures, where they go through the rigmarole of, handling clients. So whole approach was very different. अब कुछ करना है, job तो मिल नहीं रही adventure industry में. So we said, why not we start our own, because, we know everything, how to go about it. We know how to organize a trek. We've learned all of this, and we learn over time. And by then in Bombay, I was already leading treks in Sahyadri, where I would plan the trek. Everything, right from tea, calling for a drive, calling for a car, talking to the client. So we started like that. So my friend said, yeah, let's do it. Let's start small. And that is how Bohemian Adventures. And then after the relief work that we finished, our principal at NIM, he met us. And he said, one of my course mates, Mamta, she used to stay in this village called Bankoli in Uttarkashi, and her entire house was washed away. And that girl had never told us. And she was doing relief work with us. और उसके पहले उसने 500 बच्चों को भी बचाया था. तो he said, don't you know about our house and all? He said, no. He said, 15 दिन तुम्हारे साथ रही है, तुमको नहीं पता इसका घर चला गया है. I said, no. So I said, okay, we'll raise some funds. We'll build our house for her. So I raised some funds. I wrote about it. So while I was also doing relief work, I was actually reporting from ground. I was writing then for an online publication, giving the real stories. Then I said, ठीक है, let's raise some funds for a house. And we also did a post-disaster expedition where I called for climbers from Uttarakhand, and the expedition was called For Uttarakhand, In Uttarakhand and By Uttarakhand. So we got few climbers. That is where we met our third business partner, Shashi. She'd come for the expedition because she's a Uttarakhandi from Dehradun. And the three of us really gelled well. We planned the expedition. Guneet and me planned the entire expedition. And the whole money that we raised through the expedition, we gave it back to the adventure community because of the disaster, for the next 6 months, they wouldn't get job because trekking would be stopped.
So we can add a philanthropist also along with the...
Yeah, I mean, all of this was never planned by me, I mean, it just kind of kept happening. And I just realized somewhere I had this ability to talk to people, raise funds, and it just kept happening. So we raised funds for Mamta's house, built her house, raised funds for the community, adventure community. And then Bohemian Adventures started in 2014. After all of this finished, when we sat down to see what we had done and what was the gap left, is when we realized there's this huge gap. And we said, ठीक है, we will start on our own, and that's how Bohemian Adventures started. And my whole premise of starting Bohemian Adventures was we need to introduce as many people to the outdoors, as many people who think that outdoors is only for the fit people. You have to be super fit to go on a trek. You need to be super fit to, you need basic fitness, yes. You need stamina, yes. But all of this can be achieved with a little bit of training before you go on a trek. And we decided we can guide people on that. But we need to get this fear out of people that they are not capable of doing it. Because everybody is capable of doing everything. But there is an inert mindset that we are all grown up with कि तुम ये नहीं कर सकते, तुम ये कर सकती हो, तुम वो नहीं कर सकती हो. So we said, can we introduce as many people? And then when we started the company, we realized that we're getting calls from a lot of women. So they're saying that, you know, I want to go, but I've never tried, I'm scared. So we've broken all that biases that people have faced from other companies saying ki, no, you're 40, you can't do it. You're old to go to the high altitude. So we said, come along, we will take you and go. So that's how Bohemian Adventures started, with this premise that everybody belongs to the outdoors.
And the outdoors belong to everybody.
Yeah, and everybody can go, and we are here, we are trained. Why are we trained? To be able to take people's... The other thing was, the main thing in Bohemian Adventures was that we will not herd people to the mountains. We want to give you a full experience of what the outdoors are, so that you come back to do something better, something higher than what you've already done. And safety was paramount. There was no compromise on safety. So till date, we do not do more than 10-12 people, which means that we've not played the volume game. We are not earning loads of money through treks. It's just that our passion has converted into a purpose.
Anusha, tell me about that cycling expedition from Manali to Khardungla. So you're really a woman of substance who really advocates inclusion and people with disability. I'm very curious to know about that cycling expedition that was taken on from Manali to Khardungla. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was volunteering with an organization that was working on inclusion for persons with disability in the outdoors. And I got this opportunity to partake in this tandem cycling expedition. It was my first, 2017. I'd never done tandem cycling. So I had actually enrolled as a cyclist. And I said, I will go along with the rest. So the team comprised of solo cyclists and tandem cyclists. So there were some portions where I did tandem cycling with the blind, where I was the captain in the blind. And it was a wonderful opportunity. And it was in 2016 actually where the seeds of inclusion was, sown in my mind, because I had a question from a blind guy saying that he wanted to go on a trek. And I said, sure, I can take you on a trek. So I said, sure, you can go. And he said, but nobody's there to take me. So I said, I'll take you.
But tell me one thing, isn't that a lot of responsibility,
Yes.
taking a person with disability into the mountains?
It's the same. It's the same as if I'm going to take a novice, non-disabled person into the outdoors. And if there is a disabled person with me in the outdoors. The non-disabled, who's a novice, who's never trekked in the outdoors, and a disabled, they're both on the same page.
Okay.
And that's what the outdoors does. It just equalizes. Everybody's on the same page. He might be able to see. He might be able to speak. He might have his hands and legs intact. But he still needs my help. Similar to the person with disability, who equally needs a guide. So you understand how seamlessly inclusion happens in the outdoor.
But you've also taken an amputee.
Yeah, so it's the same, because the amputee was also equally sporty. He'd done much more. The amputee was a rider. He's done Ladakh, probably Bombay, Ladakh several times, and so so when this blind guy told me, and it never struck me that for so many years I've been guiding people in the mountains. Not one person with disability I'd ever found who wanted to go on a trek, nor did we advertise to persons with disability saying that we can take you. So that is where it struck me that there is a huge gap. There is a huge gap in taking persons with disability are not seen in the outdoors, and everybody has space here. Why aren't people with disabilities? And it's a very what do I say? It's a situation. It's like a catch-22. Persons with disability think that nobody can take them out, and we non-disabled think that we are not capable of taking them, or we're scared. Because right from school, we've never interacted with persons with disabilities. The first apprehension is, how do I talk to a blind person? You talk to him the way you talk to everybody else, but there is this fear as to how am I going to interact with him, because we're so used to seeing people, right?
So Anusha, I think I am really inspired by you, and I always felt that now at this age I've been wanting to go to Ladakh, but I feel maybe my lungs are not going to be up to it or things like that. But talking to you, I'm now thinking that I need to go back there and be a part of that, the mountains and the terrain.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing that one can't do. I've been a chronic asthmatic, and when I realized that this blind guy telling me, and I'm giving confidence to him saying that I can take you, I didn't realize that there were so many people. When I wanted to do high altitude treks, I was told, you're an asthmatic, you need to be careful. I don't think you can do that. We don't think you can really make it to the high altitude.
So were you trying to prove a point that if you say I can't, I will?
No, I wasn't trying to prove a point. It was just that when people told me that you can't do it, it kind of struck me that no, I'll try. It was actually a friend of mine who said, you're doing a trek in high altitudes in Arunachal Pradesh, why don't you come? He just told me the first acclimatization trek is up to 10,000 feet. If you think you can't do it, you can go back and we will see you. So I was very practical. I said, TK, if I can't do it, I'm not going to stress myself, because I don't want to put others in a trouble. Although I knew how to take care of myself in the outdoor. I had done a lot of rock climbing by then, pinnacle climbing and all of that. But high altitude trek, even I was a little apprehensive, because everybody, kept on telling me that high altitude mein oxygen is less, and it might be very difficult. So I said, no, let me try it. That 10,000, believe me, I'd carried 6 Astelin inhalers with me. I didn't use one. And the 10,000 feet that I climbed from, say, an altitude of about 7,000 feet, I was hale and hearty. And then I said, Gango, I'm going for the trek.
That's wonderful.
I'm going to continue. And that is how my journey started. And when he asked me that question, I realized inclusion is something that I want to work on.
So we're really, really proud of having you here, Anusha, and you're really inspiring. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers will be inspired by your journey, and that the fear of, will I be able to do it? Probably, is something we need to overcome and conquer. Anusha, tell us about your trek to Kilimanjaro, where you took blind people with you.
So after I completed the 2017 Manali to Khardungla cycling expedition, with the same organization, I got this idea that why not we do a blind expedition to Mount Kilimanjaro with the blind. And at that time, I realized that there has been no inclusive expedition to Mount Kilimanjaro with persons with disability, and we would be India's first. I did a lot of research and everything, but that was not the idea, being India's first expedition team to Mount Kilimanjaro with persons, or the first inclusive expedition to Mount Kilimanjaro. That was not the idea. The idea was, can we do it? and I knew 3 blind men. I had knew 2 of them through that organization, and so I said, would you be interested in Mount Kilimanjaro? So what I had done was I planned it in a way that we raise funds for the blind and the few guides, and the non-disabled will pay for the expedition, and they agreed. And that's how I put a team together where we were 10 of us, 10 non-disabled and 3 blind, and we got 1 blind gentleman from Israel. And Uri Basha from Israel was an ex-army man in the Israeli army, and he was also a lot into adventure sport. So in the tandem cycling expedition, there was an Israeli woman who was interested in coming for this expedition with her son. And through her, Uri also came to know, and he said, I will join on the expedition. And that is how the entire team got, we came together as a team. And I kind of studied a lot. I researched a lot. So we were 3 guides from India. And then I told my organizing company the operator company in Kilimanjaro, that I need 6 more guides. So for 3 blind men, we were 9 guides.
Wow.
And 10 others were also there. And it was India's first inclusive expedition.
That must have been really
successfully
amazing. Such a good experience for you and for those people, and such a life-changing thing.
Yeah, and for me, that was the starting point of being an advocate for inclusion of persons with disability in the outdoors. Awesome. And that is where I decided that I will work for this cause. I will advocate for persons with disability. And since then, it's been 8 years now, more than 8 years, I think, 9 years, that I've been working to take as many persons with disability and introduce them to the outdoors.
That's amazing. Anusha, I believe you're also writing a book as of now. What is it about? Can you briefly tell us about it?
So it is in the area of adventure and mountaineering. And it is one of my stories as a journalist that I had covered. And I've converted into a fiction book.
But it's based on a real story, I know.
Yes, it is a real, true investigative piece. And I'm hoping that I will soon find a publisher for the same, because my manuscript is ready and I'm the lookout of a publisher. So hopefully I will be soon finding one.
We will look forward to reading that book.
Yes, because it's a story that I sat on it for 8 years. And it was only last year, in the beginning of last year, that I felt I must tell this story, and I started writing the book. And I'm glad to say that I've successfully completed writing it.
Wonderful. So thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
We're really happy to have you here. And maybe once you publish your book and everything, we'll call you again. And
sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.